Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank
Thank you to all the clappers. My name is Shelly Golan, and I want to just kick off by saying that this fireside chat will indeed be a chat because Natalia and I want it to be more of a conversation and less of an interview format. So just be prepared. I always believe that you are the best person to introduce yourself. So, Natalia, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, absolutely, Shelley. Thank you. So I'm Natalia Sokolova. I am second generation family office. My father is based in Switzerland, and our focus is safety and security sector.
That's so interesting. We share a interest in safety and security.
Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'll introduce myself. I'm Shelly, and I am a senior director at Mercury, which is a fintech. My specialization is in supporting venture-backed startups, and I specifically focus on American infrastructure, defense, and aerospace. So I had a cool roundtable earlier. Shout out to everyone who attended, and yeah, we definitely have that in common. I know where my interest came from, but I'm more interested in where your interest in this space came from, Natalia.
Well, I would say a couple of reasons. First one is, I guess, growing up in the 90s in Russia, it was really a wild, wild west, and you're a young teenager, and there is no rules. It's, you have to really know how to adapt, and you have to know how to be street smart. Otherwise, you're going to be, raped, kid, whatever it is going on in the streets. You have to actually understand the streets in that time, even though I was raised in the oldest noble living family. But I think that's adaptation and knowing how to handle yourself, because it's all about how you handle yourself. If you're afraid, it's like a dog, right? If you're afraid of a dog, it will bite you. But if you come on strong and confident with love to it, it will actually love you back. So that goes in the human nature as well. So that's kind of first aspect. And second aspect, I'm a single mom with two boys. And for a parent, there's nothing more important than safety of their children. So when I hear all the school shootings and all the craziness that's going on in America, like we should be living in a very safe country. So it became pretty much my mission to work with the companies to develop technologies that help protect schools, public safety, law enforcement, so our streets are safer and our kids can thrive.
When we spoke earlier, yeah, shout out to that. Applause.
What about you? What did you get in defense?
Oh, well, I got into defense and infrastructure because I originally come from a climate background. So I was mainly focused for a long time on the ways that we could improve our environment and our world. And increasingly, I was disillusioned by some of the language around the climate movement that I felt wasn't leading to sufficient action. My parents are Israeli. That's my background. I'm from New York City. Uh, Thank you. And I became very entranced by the founders I was working with at Mercury, who were in this hard tech, deep tech space, because I valued the fact that for the most part they were making very concrete things. They were using science and technology and their own brain power to come up with new types of airplanes, new types of AI systems, new types of potential defense technologies, and I just really enjoyed working with them.
So you just wanted to go in the footsteps and continue the legacy of the family?
I don't know, it's not a legacy, but I do think that it has a bit of a play in my outlook. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So you have also a very interesting background in your life, even from an earlier age. And I know that there was a kind of a trigger point where your path suddenly changed. Can you share a little bit more about what that was?
Yeah, so in very early 90s, basically after the fall of Soviet Union, my father was just happened to be probably in the right place at the right time with our connections and family relations. So he started off in a business of remodeling buildings or old antique historical buildings right in the center of Moscow. It's where I grew up. And that's, evolved into a much bigger construction business and then into oil and gas. So by the time I was, just turned 16 years old, I won the contest to go to, as one of the first exchange programs to come to America. I went to last semester of high school and then got admitted to Maryland without high school diploma. And the path was that I graduate here, get one of the best educations. And with American education, I come and I work with my dad. At that time, he already moved to Switzerland, and together we'll continue building his wealth, and which eventually became a family office space. But life is never what you predict it to be. Most of the time, it's not. So as soon as I started college, a week after Halloween night, my friends basically dragged me out of bed. I was already sleeping, and we went to Ocean City, Delaware. And the next thing I know, I woke up in the hospital, and doctors basically, and I can't feel anything. So like I try to move, and I completely cannot move my body except for like from the waist down. So then when I was in coma for some time, and then when I wake up, the doctors told me that I have like 3 days to live because I lost too much blood, and unless I do like extreme blood fusion, and then I have zero chance to walk ever again in my life. So the absolute best case scenario for me would be confined to the wheelchair. My mom actually just flew in, and they would not let her in the room. So I said, listen, I'm still a minor. If you have to bring my mom into the room because to authorize the blood transfusion. And the doctor said, absolutely not, the visitor's hours are over. And I got so mad, remember kind of going in and out of conscious, like, well, then I'm refusing, and if I'm going to die, it's on you. And they never let my mom in, and I never had a blood transfusion. But in that time, like that accident taught me a lot, because when you're kind of in and out of conscience, and everything you understand falls apart, because we don't realize that we're not grateful for the fact that we get up and walk. We're not grateful that we can breathe, or run around and dance and have fun. And when everything is stripped down from you, I was playing tennis, and I did not know where I was standing. So that was a really interesting moment in my life where I knew that, or I'm going to just basically give up because I cannot live my life in the wheelchair, or I'm going to do everything to prove everybody wrong. And in those moments, my great grandmother, who survived concentration camps because she went to School of Noble Women, and as I mentioned, I come from a 14th century as the oldest noble family in Russia. She always raised me to think that there's no such a word as I don't, as I can't, as only I don't want to. So when a kid says, I can't do it, I was like, you can, you just don't want to. So he kind of came to me in my out times, and I kind of remember that feeling. I was like, no, you have to push forward, you have to live, you have a greater purpose in this, so you can't give up. So I guess that heritage, that her surviving concentration camps, coming back, helping to raise my mom, and she helped to raise me, is what pulled me out of it. I mean, I just had so much intense internal power that no matter what, I'm going to get up and go. So there was no way out for me. And my mom by my side, of course, that helped a lot as well to give me that strength. So when I was able to actually get up, and there was prognosis was better, I realized that this happens not because I was not supposed to take the path I was supposed to take. So I told my father that I'm not going back to Switzerland, and I just have to figure out what my own path is. Well, my dad did not take it too well, to say the least. So he was pretty upset that, like that was his plan. I was his only daughter at the time, and he was devastated. He was trying to push me. So he said, you cut off, you never get anything from me. I was like, fine, bye. So that's, I basically started on my own, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because in this nowadays and age, especially when you're born into families with money, I see a lot of families, just kind of feeding them on a blue platter, and kids are born and they grow up without having the street smarts, without having ability to actually fight for themselves or be hungry. And the number one thing that stops us is actually, being too comfortable, because that's number one destroyer of our lives from actually succeeding and growing. So at that moment, I'm actually very thankful to my father, because I am where I'm at right now exactly because I had to fight for it.
So you did what many people, I think, haven't and couldn't, which is you walked away and said no to what would have been a very, very comfortable path. And not just a comfortable path, but a legacy, right?
Mhm.
And we have a lot of sessions the last 2 days about legacy and continuing the legacy. And you're an example where, because of that accident that you were in, you took a separate path forward. And the fact you found yourself kind of back on a path, but on your own terms,
Mhm.
is, I think, one of the more interesting things about your story, Natalia.
No, yeah, thank you very much. And like I wanted to actually to go back a little bit to you. So the Mercury, why did you choose especially like a Mercury, and what is it? Because I want to talk about being women in this
Mm.
world, right? As a woman, how did you find yourself working amongst the men, and did you find that route more challenging or easier being a woman?
Um, I never really found it challenging. I don't come from a family office background. I don't come from wealth in that way. But I do have the blessing and the privilege of having a very strong parents, very close with my mother, very close with my father. And I always like to say that I never felt like I was my father's daughter. I always felt like I was his kid. And I think there's a difference in there somewhere. But my mother is also the strongest person I know. So I kind of live through life being myself, and usually that could be a little bit aggressive and blunt. And turns out a lot of men appreciate that approach in business, especially. Um, but I do think that it took confidence over years to build the internal confidence to go into rooms that, especially when I was younger in my career and younger as a person, felt a little bit more vulnerable to be in. So yeah, I think it is a path to being one of the few women in the room.
Hmm. Yeah, well, in a way, what my experience was is um, when I was studying my own path, I decided that I'm going to go into corporate America. That was my goal. I was, member of all the honor societies and graduated with the top percent of my school, regardless of all my health. Uh, but still, obviously, that was not enough because when you have a lot of nerve damage, when you have a hard time walking, keeping the balances, and you, especially being a teenager, so of course, especially being a woman, a youth, you have a lot of insecurities. So I worked really hard on them, but it was not an easy path. But a lot of times, I always say that path always presents itself. Sometimes you don't know where you're going, but it just path somehow appears, and it's usually the right path to follow. So in my case, I was just hanging out in the Russian restaurant, and some native Indian came up to me and basically asked me to if I'd be open enough to replace Miss Russian Hawaiian Tropic International. I was like, this is not something that happens very often. And usually, like, I'm very skeptical and I don't talk to strangers. And I decided to kind of, explore it further. And long story short, I became a first runner-up in Hawaiian Tropic International. And the only reason I agreed to go there is because for me, if I can walk that stage when I can barely walk without falling and weakness, and amongst 200,000 contestants competing worldwide to get into finals, for me, then I promised myself that mentally I overcame my accident, my insecurity. So it was just a self-challenge. There was nothing more than that. So I come back. It was right before I graduated from university, and I got a job offer from American Express Financial Advisors. Like they got 2 kids out of 300, like 7 interviews. I was happy, as a backup. I was, already had an MBA program, but I really didn't want to do it without taking a break. So life was wonderful. Like I got what I wanted. So uh, I had a call from Playboy, and they said, "Well, would you like to come and we want to interview you?" And I had no idea what Playboy was. I had no idea what anything was. So basically, I was still studying, and I said, "Listen, just leave me alone because I have to finish my tests." So they kept calling. I kept hanging up, and then eventually, I received tickets in the mail. Obviously, it was before emails or anything. So I was like, okay, so I already have a job offer. I already needed to college. Already got my internship in U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Why not to go? So next time I know, I found myself in the Playboy Mansion, which is kind of different from being a University of Maryland student. And what's interesting, because I would never normally go there, it was just not my path at all, as I thought. But it's kind of like I see a lot of people, we so get stuck in what we want to do in our lives, and we so push forward on that. And then when the opportunity, our true path comes on, we almost push it away, brush it off. And through my life, I like learned, just like when you have that little voices in your life, or something like a stranger comes up to you with something really weird, something completely nonsense, even like, it was like, why is it happening to me? I would highly suggest to pay attention to that. Because sometimes that little person or some brush in the elevator or whatever that moment is, the moment can be pivoting moment in your life to change where you're going. So for me, that completely pivoting moment, saying hi to a complete stranger and going to Hawaiian Tropic International, changed my whole course life. Because when I was in the mansion, I got a call from my attorney saying that uh, your visa got denied. You cannot get a visa in the finance industry because you have to prove that American cannot qualify for this position. Obviously, it doesn't exist in that space. So I'm like coming to the dinner with crying, basically trying not to hold my tears back. And I was like, well, we got your visa. That's how I ended up being a playmate. And that's being that experience and having lived that life, being in the rooms with extremely influential people, celebrities, hosting the most high-end parties, taught so many valuable lessons, how to handle yourself, how to read the room, how to carry yourself. And Playboy actually gives a lot of classes to the playmates of how to hold yourself, how to do the body language, how to, avoid people who are drunk and not to get in trouble. Like, a lot of little things. And I never knew that those lessons will be absolutely crucial when it became my entrepreneurship career. Just because, you are a woman, you're walking in at the door, especially even though people didn't really Google. I was hiding the fact that I was modeling. I was kind of have two parallel careers at the same time. But still, when you have a pretty girl walking into the room, the first thing that a lot of men see is the pretty girl walking into the room. I think that women have to work much harder to earn their place in life, and especially in the men's world. And I think that's why women are so much more driven to earn that space. So I highly recommend to all the guys running different companies to hire more women, because you need that voice, you need that intuition in the room, you need that somebody in your ear kind of guiding you. Okay, you know what? Maybe you should pay attention to that. That's our skill.
She's cool, right? It's crazy.
So what would be, you said that you were looking at an MBA and then you decided not to. And before we move on, I just want to ask you, what would be one lesson or two lessons that you did learn from your time in the mansion that you think, should be applied more broadly to business, that especially people who are younger, if there's a new gen that wants to, be successful in this space, what would be something that you think would apply for them?
Well, I think there's maybe a couple like even like energetic tricks, because when you walk in the room and you're completely overwhelmed, especially when you're younger and you're scared, especially how the people treat, is kind of just visually expand your energy. So, and that trick that Playboy taught me is helped me a lot when I was just starting entrepreneurship career, and I walk in the boardroom and I'm like so scared, I'm shaking, like I don't know what in. But I remember myself in being in that room, and I was like, okay, I just slow down everything, take deep breaths, and just literally connect to the four corners in the ceiling and just expand your energy and start and that calms you down a lot. It's kind of like pushes the noise away, which is really simple trick, but it actually works. That's just from energy. From perspective, we all know that we everything's about relationships, right? So you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have the right people around you or the right context around you, you're not going to be able to get anywhere in life. And that's why Playboy opened up a lot of doors, but also opened how to not be afraid to open those doors, how to not be able to push your fears away and to walk in. So I think that's the number one lesson I would say to anybody who is have kids or starting out in just in a business they don't know well. Uh, Identify the person who you really want to meet, can be crucial to your business. Find out this confirmation and just figure out who you know there and just walk into that office. Just make it happen. Don't just go around. It was like not impossible. I don't care how high it is. If you believe and you can do it, you can do it. So that is kind of pushing beyond limits, because the only limits we have are the ones we set on ourselves.
Yeah, big plus on that. So we spoke about the kind of primary disruption in your life, which was your accident that caused you to take this different path. But you've had to rebuild yourself one or two other times in the past, and I say that because I do feel like I'd love to briefly talk about that and what tools you used to climb, a second time. A lot of I think there's a lot of stories of, oh, there was a big moment and accident or a failure, and then we climbed up and everything was linear up from
Mm,
there. But most success has a few ups and downs, and it's all about how quickly and you're able to pick yourself back up.
yeah, no, absolutely, and thanks for asking that. Um, when you are, feel like top of the mall on the world, like had a successful business plus successful modeling, everything's finally seems to be great, right? You forget sometimes that to to look more internally, and you become a little cocky. Your ego kicks in, not in the good way. And I started, like I was planning my future pretty accurately. I actually set up all my like trusts and even life insurance before I had a kid. So I mean, I was thinking ahead when I was in my 20s. I started buying real estate. I got my house in Hollywood Hills when I was 25, first income property around 26. So I kept on buying this stuff. But then, like it seems easier. Also, the timing there was right. I sold my online marketing company for 7 figures, which I invested in real estate. And but and then basically 2008 hits, I moved to New York and I have properties both in California and New York. And then I buy property, my favorite number is 23. So I did the closing on May 23rd, 2008. And that would completely put me upside down. I over leveraged. All this crisis hit. Tenants could not pay. Places went under. And I was talking to my friend, who was like, and he was in that space. I was like, you know me, I'm your friend. Why the hell you did not ask me advice before you freaking bought that property? And it just sunk to me. I was like, because I was kind of in a role, and it was my first time around. So I never went through different cycles. I did not know what to expect. And the biggest lesson I learned is when you're entering the new space, make sure you have mentors or people you trust around you who've been through cycles, who know what to expect. Because I went completely under and I had to rebuild everything again, which, it's, but this time it was more through the long-term strategy rather than just in a way like ego and believing that I can do it all.
I think that's another good advice for sure. Surround yourself with people who've been through a few
Yeah.
times that you trust, and receive advice from them when necessary. And I think it's also very human when you're successful,
Yeah.
and you feel a little full of
Yeah.
yourself, arrogant, like you got it going on. But life has a way of humbling
Yeah.
you, and you got to climb back out.
What's the event in your life that kind of changed the way you think? Or was it something that doesn't matter, has to be like personal, financial that you are comfortable talking about?
I relate a little bit to not as severe and abrupt as your accident, but I grew up with chronic illness. I had Crohn's disease from a very young age. So I think being so young and having to manage kind of a chronic illness, and all of the things attached to that just gave me a different perspective and a different level of confidence and resilience is the right word. So it's not one event, it's an ongoing thing, but I do think that today it has given me an edge, because I view the things that I do in business and in life. We talked earlier, without health, there is no wealth.
Yes.
Um, and so it kind of removed a lot of fear that I may have had, because it wasn't the worst thing. Like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. I'm happy to be healthy and walking around and in a good place. So that would be my kind of primary event.
That's great. And how do you think that going through that actually helped you or changed the way that you operated your business and to make choices in your life?
I think the resilience piece is key. So as you experience, when there are ups and there are downs, you have to have the ability to push through the downs and have that relentless optimism, that you could see the other side of it. And that's where success comes from in a lot of business, where
Yes.
things go wrong and you just have to feel like, well, it's going to go right, and it has to go right, and you're going to do everything in your power to make it go right.
Yeah.
And that I think is a big piece. And there's also an element of control. I think when you have health issues, a big issue is a loss of control. You can't control often what happens or how you feel or these other events. And so for me, when I do work and I have business and my relationships with people, I feel like these are things that I have a bit more control in, and that makes me feel very empowered in a way. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for asking.
And I guess we're getting close to the time, but one thing I actually want to add, because kind of wrapping around in the way to our industries, is one other lesson is sometimes structure is more important than find funding or money around it, because structure is what helps you to preserve your wealth and to actually go become into the legacy and multi-generational. So if you don't have a correct structure set up in place, and it goes from your family office
You're talking about
structure.
legacy now, right?
Well, I'm talking about just wealth preservation and
Yeah,
legacy in a
for
way.
sure.
Yeah, so kind of both. And it's not just the family office structure, but also the structure about like how do you structure your investments, how do you structure your portfolios. Like for instance, to make it more clear, so in our family office, what we do is we create an ecosystem. So when we invested outside of our knowledge, it did not turn out too well. So we found a level of our expertise, which is to do with safety and security space, a lot to do with the drones, from command control and avionics to actually right now we're getting into manufacturing stuff. And right now we're actually finding a lot of smaller companies in that space. We're bringing them onto our umbrella through different mechanisms. And then because there's such a huge missed gap between defense companies who are raising hundred millions of dollars, and the little guys have no way to enter the market. So we are not always solving that problem, but also we're opening ability to find those interesting technologies that otherwise going to be completely lost and they would not have ways to surface. So this is when you're talking about the structure, make sure you have proper trust, revocable, irrevocable, wills, everything set up, because sometimes we get caught out in life and we forget and we don't believe that something bad might happen. When you don't believe something bad might happen, it usually does, just to wake you up. So make sure you're protected on all the fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. We're about 2 minutes in, but I want to ask you two more questions. The first is, what would be your advice to people in the room who have daughters, who want to raise daughters to continue their legacy, to continue their work? Based on your experience, do you have any advice for people in that position?
I kind of developed like a little. If anybody goes to my social media, you'll see the term true goddess. For me, the true goddess is really because all women are goddesses in the way that we all connect to the higher power. Women wear so many different uh, images, right? We go from mother to wife to just a businesswoman. So woman can be anything she wants. And I think the message I have to the girls out there is just trust what you want. Don't fall for peer pressure. That's what is right or wrong. Trust your instincts, trust your heart, find out what you're passionate about, and go for it. There's really no wrongs and rights as long as you're actually being true to yourself. And I think that's what happening in a lot of societies, that women feel so much pressure to perform under certain conditions. But realistically, we're the most powerful when we're given the freedom to be who we are.
I fully agree. Yeah, that's a round of applause worthy, I think.
Thank you.
The last thing I want to ask is, we have a beautiful full room here. Thank you all. And how would you like people to engage with you, Natalia, with all the learning that you've had, and how you could share it? What would be the best way for people to connect with you like that?
Thank you for asking that. I have a website, my first and last name.com. So Natalia, Sokolova.com. Same thing with social media. It's first last name dot official, LinkedIn. So I am on all social medias, WhatsApp, this, and please reach out. Please share your insights. Let's unite together, because people in this room are those who can actually make a difference in their lives. So it's all about being grateful. Don't forget where you come from. Don't forget the people who have been there for you during the hard times. Go back to them, say thank you, give them gratitude, and push it forward. Just see, okay, what can I do to help somebody else? In my book, there's some up front, and I'm happy to sign. I have some more here. I talk just about random act of kindness. If you just go on the street and just help a stranger, do something nice, do something kind. And that's what I call the concept of true wealth, that I created that philosophy, and that's what the book is about.
So everyone check out Natalia's book. She might sign it if you're lucky. And thank you all. We're at time. Thank you all for for joining us for this fireside chat.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Natalia.
everybody. Thank you, Tobias.
Yes, thank you for the cue. Doing good is our next topic. Thank you.